If you are a student, a tech professional, or honestly anyone trying to learn faster and think clearer in 2026, you need to know about NotebookLM. Now, you've probably heard of it. Maybe you've seen those AI generated podcasts go viral. But here's the thing, most people are using maybe 10% of what this tool can actually do. I want to show you the other 90% because when you use NotebookLM properly, it stops being a novelty and starts being genuinely one of the most useful AI tools out there. NotebookLM is a research workspace built by Google. But here is what makes it different from just chatting with ChatGPT or Claude. You give it a source first, then it helps you ask questions, synthesize information, and turn that material into actual usable outputs. The key idea is that it's grounded in what you upload. So instead of a generic AI guessing and hallucinating, it behaves more like a source-grounded research assistant that can only talk about what you've given it. That constraint is actually the superpower. Think of it like this. ChatGPT knows everything but might be grounded in nothing. And NotebookLM knows only what you give, but it is grounded in those specific contexts. For learning and research, that second thing is way more valuable. When you create a new notebook, the first thing you see is the sources panel. This is the whole game. I cannot stress this enough. The quality of your NotebookLM output is basically the quality of the sources that you feed it. Here are the things that you can add to it. PDFs and documents, this could be your class notes, white papers, ebooks, research papers. Just upload them directly. Then you have web pages. Let's say you found a good blog post or a documentation page. Just paste the URL. It pulls the text in its source. Then we have the YouTube videos. This one's also huge. If you're learning from lectures, podcasts, technical talks, conference presentation, just paste the YouTube link in there. It transcribes and indexes the whole thing. Then you also have Google Drive. So if your docs live in Drive, you can attach Google Docs, slides, or PDFs directly into it. And here is where it gets more powerful. You can combine multiple source types in one notebook itself, like a lecture video plus a slide plus a comparison blog plus the original paper. I usually aim for one primary source, the thing that I'm actually trying to learn, one or two explainer sources, which is blogs or videos that break it down, and optionally one reference source, which is docs or papers. Now, before you start asking questions, you should know that there are two kinds of research modes. One is fast research, which gives you quick scanning and quick answers, which is good when you already have solid sources and just want to query them. Then you have deep research, which is more thorough. It creates a research plan, gathers more context, organizes things, and helps you with the answers. Now use this when you're starting from scratch on a complex topic. Once your sources are in, you've got a chat interface. And technically what's happening under the hood is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. In plain English, it finds the relevant chunks from your sources first, then generates an answer grounded in those chunks with citations back to where it got each piece. So when it says something, you can actually verify it. That is huge for learning because you're not just trusting the AI, you're building real understanding. Okay, here is the part that most people miss entirely. Studio is where NotebookLM turns your sources into actual deliverable. And there are 8 outputs that you can generate. Let me run through them quickly. First is audio overview, which turns your notebook into a conversational podcast style summary. It's great for passive learning while commuting or walking. Then we have a video overview, which creates a video summary with slides, like a mini lesson grounded from your sources. Then we have the mind map, which visually clusters ideas so you can see the structure and relationship between concepts. Then we have the report that generates structured documents. So things like briefing documents or study guides, FAQ summaries, etc. Then we have the flashcards, which turns your sources into recall cards for memorization. Then we have the quiz, which tests your understanding, not just based on your recall, but actually adjusting the difficulty. Then we have infographic, which gives you a visual summary of the key concepts. It is great for sharing or doing a quick reference. And finally, we have the slide deck, which creates a presentation based on your sources. The magic is combining chat prompts with studio outputs. So the first use case is turning a lecture into a complete study system in 15 minutes. This is probably the highest value use case for students. So in the input, I paste a YouTube lecture link. Let's say that we're using the Stanford machine learning lecture. And then in the prompt, I'm going to say, using only this lecture, explain the main idea like you're teaching a complete beginner. Now give me the same explanation at exam level. Include formal definitions, common mistakes students make, and one example question. Then the third prompt I'm going to use is list the 12 most important terms from this lecture and define each one using only what was covered. Now in the studio section, you can click on flashcards. Now I have recall cards for spaced repetition. Then let's click on quiz, choose medium difficulty first. If it's too easy, you can regenerate it as hard. Then let's click on audio overview. Now you can listen to this recap while walking to class, which reinforces everything that you just studied. So here is my tip. Don't stop at one lecture. As the semester progresses, keep adding lectures to the same notebook. Now let's get to use case 2, which is a technical documentation accelerator. This is for when you need to learn something properly but fast. So in the input, I paste the official React docs for use effect. And in the chat, I'm gonna say, explain use effect like I'm a junior engineer seeing it for the first time. Use one simple example. Then I can use another prompt saying, now explain it like I'm a senior engineer reviewing the code. What are the common mistakes and anti-patterns? Then in the third prompt, I can say something like, create a code review checklist I can use to detect incorrect use effect usage. Now in the studio space, I can click on mind maps and you can see how docs have interconnected concepts. This shows me how use effect connects to lifestyle, dependencies, cleanup, and external systems. Then you can click on reports, which generates a short briefing document called use effect in practice. Now I have a one-page reference I actually wrote for myself. Then you can click on slide deck. If I want to teach this to my team in a 5-minute internal share, I've got a starting point. So here is my quick tip. For any new technology that you're learning, create a detailed notebook and keep adding sources as you learn. Blog posts that helped, Stack Overflow threads that you referenced, YouTube explanations, and over time you've built a personalized knowledge base that's way better than scattered bookmarks. Now let's get into use case 3. Learning AI concepts by combining papers and explainers. This is my personal favorite because this is how I actually learn complex AI stuff. So in the input, I'm going to add 2 sources, the original rack paper PDF from archive and J. Alamar's illustrated transformer blog. The paper gives you rigor and the explainer gives you intuition. Together, they are way more powerful than either alone. So as a first prompt, I'm going to say, summarize the paper in 10 sentences, but focus in the mechanism and architecture, not the benchmark results. Then in the second prompt, I'm going to say, describe the pipeline as a step-by-step system design. Pretend you're explaining blocks and arrows to somebody whiteboarding. Then in the third prompt, I'm going to say, list the engineering constraints implied by this approach. Think latency, indexing cost, retrieval quality, and failure modes. And then I can go to the studio output section and click on reports. This becomes my personal reference as I come back to it. So here is my quick tip. When you're reading AI papers, always pair them with explainer content. The paper tells you what they did. The explainer helps you understand why it matters. And NotebookLM is perfect for synthesizing both perspectives. Now getting to use case 4, having a system design and technical interview prep. This one is super practical if you're job hunting in 2026. So you just gather your sources. First, a system design primer blog post, then a set of YouTube videos for mock system design interviews, and a documentation for specific technologies I would like to discuss. Then in the first prompt, I'm going to say, what are the core components that appear in most system design interviews? List them with one sentence explanation. Then as a follow-up, I would like to say, give me a framework for approaching any system design question in a structured way. Then the third question I'm going to ask is generate 10 follow-up questions an interviewer might ask about scalability and outline how to answer each. And here is my tip for it. Create separate notebooks for different interview types. One for system design, one for behavioral, one for coding patterns. Each becomes its own study system that you can revisit before different rounds. Now let's talk about the fifth use case, which is meeting prep and decision clarity for tech professionals. Honestly, this might be the highest leverage use case for working professionals. So as an input, let me add a mix of internal sources. A design doc from Google Drive and a background research links and maybe a YouTube recording from a previous team discussion. I can start with the first prompt as summarize the proposal in 5 bullets, including the main trade-offs being considered. Then as a second prompt, I can say list the unanswered questions and assumptions that need validation before we can ship. And then the third prompt saying that write the top 10 questions a senior staff engineer would ask in a design review. Now, if you're a tech lead or manager, create a notebook for each major project or decision. Keep adding context as discussions evolve. By decision time, you have a complete synthesis for everything that was considered. And by the way, make sure that you're using a corporate account for this. Now, the sixth use case is for content repurposing for creators and thought leaders. If you're building in public, writing technical blogs, or creating educational content, this workflow is gold. As an input, I'm just going to add everything that's relevant, which is paper PDFs, blog posts, documents, lecture videos, whatever you want in your topic. Then I'm gonna say, give me a 1-paragraph explanation of this topic for a general audience. Then I can ask that now give me a technical explanation for engineers, which is concrete and specific. And then finally, I can say something like generate 3 versions, a short LinkedIn post, a slide outline for a talk, and a tweet thread structure. Now, the best content comes from synthesis and not summarization. So use NotebookLM to find connections between sources that aren't obvious and then build your unique perspective on top of them. Well, that was the full breakdown, and if you try any of these workflows, let me know how it goes in the comments below.